Hey guys, welcome to an anthurium repot where we might chop one or two plants. We have friends visiting us from out of town right now and they're staying with us, but they're out right now gallivanting around Stanley Park. So I thought while they're out, I'm gonna quickly film the video. I recently got some new plants, so I figured I'm gonna repot those on camera with you. There's two fresh imports from Indonesia. And one is not, I mean, I guess technically it's an import, it's from the States, but it's from Amanda or Bunny on Instagram. This was a complete surprise plant and I'm looking right now, it's just like so freaking beautiful. So I can't wait to show those to you, repot them on camera. And then I also have a few random things that need repotting. I think I had more than one that needed chopping, but I think maybe they put out new leaves, so only this one is ready to be chopped. But I only have a bit of time. And I only have this much tree fern soil made up, so we'll see how long that stretches. And everything is going to go into this mix today. I have two pond plants that need transitioning to this mix because they're not growing very well. So we'll just I really hope that this will stretch far enough because I'm using pretty big pots. And I do have a video on this mix, so I'll link in the description if you want kind of the information on what I'm using, kind of a ratio. So the first two import plants, they were imported from Indonesia. They arrived to us about a week ago today, so they've been in water that whole time. I don't love that, I wouldn't recommend that, but I've been just kind of holding off on repotting them because usually with anthuriums they come in with pretty good roots, and if it doesn't look like they're dried out or rotting, I'm gonna pot that straight into my mix. The roots on anthuriums just do better with importing. But I was literally waiting to film this video, so I don't recommend keeping it in water for a week unless it was so limp, so dehydrated that it needs to be basically submerged in water to plump back up and then get straight into a bin. So this has been out in ambient, it's just been behind me here. So if you want to see the unboxing of these plants, I will link Jing's video because she was the one who, she and I coordinated the order, and then she used her import permit, she cleared it at the airport. So she kind of goes through the process of importing from Indonesia, at least for Canadians, and then she has the unboxing. So there's a lot more plants in that video than I'm about to show you because I was only able to buy two, and they're two of the same hybrid. I'll also link the seller in the description. A lot of people probably already know his handle on Instagram. It's RDN Plant. We've imported from him a few times, and I think it was 3 times. Don't quote me on that, but he always sends super healthy plants. He's the one that we originally got the King of Spades from. So at that point, it was called Red Magnificum, and then a few months later, the King of Spades name started getting popular, and then now it's called HU. And I think it was a month ago, 2 months ago, I was asking him because I realized he had this connection with Haji Uli, he's posted photos from Haji Uli's garden, and then he told me that that plant came from Haji Uli, and these hybrids did as well. But I just want to show you my King of Spades because it just put out a new leaf and it's so red. Of course it's not showing red on camera. It's bright, fluorescent red in person, and it's really kind of tall on top. I have a feeling because it started to flower, it's having a hard time forming leaves that look as proportioned as this one, because this one was pre-flowering, this was during a flowering, and this is also while it's flowering. But it's so beautiful, and I'm so grateful that we were able to grab one at that time because we didn't really know what it was. We knew it wasn't a magnificum. We were just it's a very beautiful plant. We saw a lot of them with a very bleeding vein. Mine doesn't have a bleeding vein. But I posted this photo on my Instagram story, and he replied, he was like, how long have you had it for? And I was like, I don't know, 3-4 years. And he was like, I think it needs a bigger pot, or you've been cutting it. And I was like, yeah, I've cut it many times, Randy. And he's like, yeah, no wonder it's so small. So it is quite small for its age. I think I'm gonna try to leave it alone for the next at least, ideally 2 years, and just let it grow bigger, let it grow stronger, because I would love to have really large leaves, the size of my torso. I don't know, sometimes with aroids specifically, when they get really large, they will stress me out and then I stop liking them. But with the King of Spades, because it's quite compact, the petioles are quite short, they don't reach very much. It stays quite tidy. So this is a one where you could cut off all the extra leaves and just leave 1 or 2 really big leaves and it would look nice. So I would not mind this one being really large. So yeah, this one was from him. And then the hybrids, he said that he got them as seeds from Hajiuli. Oh, and I also should just explain in case anyone doesn't know. I feel like most people know by now that Hajiuli was the original hybridizer that created King of Spades. So what I ordered this time around was 2 HU or King of Spades crossed with crystallinum. And since he got them as seeds from Hajiuli, there's like, they all look so different. Although in saying that, the 2 that I got somehow look quite similar. So they've just been in water. Jing was like, I think I just felt bad. Like I knew I was gonna put it in tree fern soil, but I didn't want her to put it in tree fern soil because it's like, I don't know how much she has made up. So she was like, is it okay if it's just in water when I bring it? And she literally brought it into the store in like a kid's sandcastle bucket filled with water, and I just kept it in water since then. I don't think the roots have loved it. A lot of them started to mush off. That's okay. There's some breakage here, but this is the stem that it came with and it's freaking huge. I could probably chop it today actually. It's never been cut, as you can see. This is the tip where it grew from the seed. So this one I think is my favorite of the 2. I really liked it for how bleedy the veins were, and it has these little like, I don't know, what do you call it? Like little messy flecks in between. I wish there was a good name for it. I don't know, like electric veins. It looks like electric. So that's the first one. It's not as red as I would like it to be, but I freaking love the venation on it. It's so messy, it's so bleedy. And then the second one is quite similar. I feel like maybe just a little less bleedy, but it's still quite young. But this is the second one. It's probably a little bit darker. Like the silvery veins are a little bit more gray toned. This one is definitely more bright than this one. I mean, it's quite similar, so it's like a very negligible difference. It also has like the really cute electric veins. This one has also never been cut. It's like, you see how tiny it is. It starts down here. I don't know if I'm showing it to you correctly, but it's definitely never been cut. I probably could get a cutting out of this today. I don't typically cut fresh imports, but I don't think I'm gonna be repotting it anytime soon. I don't know. I need to make props, so I think I might cut the 2 of these today. This one has a smaller root system, but the thick primary veins also, again, look fine. There's a breakage here, so obviously I'll kind of clean that up a little bit. And then last week, Amanda sent a big box up here, and I really was not expecting her to send me anything. This was like purely to do a big like Amanda plant release. She doesn't ship to Canada. This was a way for Lauren to get plants in for her and like distribute them throughout Canada. She sent me the biggest plant ever. I cannot believe she sent such a big plant. Look at it. It's massive. Look at my, see? It's huge. And I was like, what is it? Because like the tag is kind of buried in here and I couldn't see it. It's an Ace of Spades crossed with BVEP. This is not her hybrid, but I think she's been growing it for a really long time. And I was like, is this like a mid cut or something? Turns out it's a top cut. And she was like, oh, don't worry. I took a little bottom cutting of myself, so I still have the plant. And I was like, a bottom cutting? Like, give me the bottom cutting. Keep the top cutting. But she's insisting that she's trying to make space. So we're going to pot up this beauty today. And the really nice thing is that it's been growing in ambient conditions. So I don't need to make any space in my tent for this. It is, look at it. It's so AC, but like blacker. But if you know Amanda and her, if you've ever gotten plants from her, you'll know that she's known for having like huge stems on her plants. And like, it's just goes to show how generous she is, because she could easily cut a lot of these plants into like 4 pieces easily and just multiply and sell them as individual plants, but she gives people a lot of room to work with. And if I find on this plant, after she took her little bottom cutting to like save a piece for herself, if I find like a big chunk on this, I'm gonna get so mad. I was just really not expecting to get something so big and so beautiful and a plant that I wanted. I remember we were on the Woohoo Tropicals Palm Street Live and they were showing Ace BVEP babies and they were so cute. And I was like, oh, I want one. And Amanda happened to be in that live. She was like, oh, I'll send you one. But like, I didn't really expect her to actually remember, first of all, and actually send it. And I don't know, I'm just really sad. I feel sad. You know how when sometimes you feel so happy, you feel sad? Yeah, it's looped around. Okay, and then the other for sure one that I want to repot today because it needs to be chopped is my Fort Sherman Ralph Lynam. So this little offset, this is one plant, these two leaves need to be chopped off because I can see that there's, can I? Yeah. At the base of this offset, I can see a really thick root. I don't know how far it extends, but it's been in there for long enough that I feel like it should be enough to sustain this plant. So I want to separate these two. I was waiting for this leaf to harden off. It's almost fully hardened off. It's like quite dark now. Look at the leaf before it. It's just such a beautiful baby plant. A beautiful baby plant. So I want to chop that off so I can bury this stem a little bit more, get some roots going because I can see a fresh one just started here on the main plant. And then when this roots out a little bit more, it'll be ready for sale. So I'm not gonna like unpot the whole thing. I'm just gonna like try to precision snip and then extract. And then after that, if I still have more soil left, I want to repot this thing. This is my Queen of Hearts. And I would love to cut it if possible. That would be ideal, but I don't know how much. I mean, it's never been cut to my knowledge. This was, I'm just pulling some deadness off. This one was ordered from Tazula, but it's a silver chrome plant. So the reason why I want to repot it, like it didn't really fill out this pot very much. I don't know if I've been like behind on the watering. I don't know. The roots are kind of finer on this, but the reason why I want to repot it is because I know something is not quite right with this. It always browns like this. Do you see this like yellowing kind of orangey color here? And previous leaves, like it's not even like the lowest down leaf. It would be like the second newest leaf or something. It would just get like papery crispy. And I know the roots, they're getting water. They're growing in ambient, but this is a plant I think can grow just fine in ambient conditions. So at first I chalked it up to it getting burned by grow lights because it was over here. There's Ammonia's T8 there, and I thought maybe the T8 is a little bit stronger. So I moved it over here into like a darker corner. These are T5, so not as strong of grow lights. And then I was just kind of like watching this leaf to see it would do it, and it started doing it. It starts like this, and it will turn into brown crisp. And then I realized that at the core of this, because this is tree fern soil here, at the core of it is a coir mix, a coco coir mix. And I've talked about this before, but I don't mess with coco coir. I think it's such a, to me, an advanced substrate. Like you have to buffer it, you have to rinse it really well. Otherwise it can cause nutrient lockout, and at worst it can cause salt burns. So I think it's possible, I'm not for sure, but I think it's possible that coir at the center, because it was in a coir mix, and then instead of loosening it all off, I just took that whole root ball and then put it into a bigger pot and surrounded it with tree fern soil. I have a feeling that coir is kind of doing something to the plant. Maybe it's getting salt burn. So yeah, that's one it's like a priority for me. And if we still have soil after that, then we'll do some other stuff. I know Charmaine is running an experiment on her channel, like a non-scientific experiment. It's not with many subjects. She's just doing two pretty identical seedlings side by side, one in a coir mix and one in a peat mix. She's running an experiment to see if the coir mix is going to show up as like these fungal looking spots all over her leaves, because I'll see if she'll let me post a photo. But this is her Ace Carla from Woohoo Tropicals. She's been growing it in like relatively low humidity, and she's just like, why are my plants still getting fungal? And I was like, one day, like, do you think it's the substrate? Like, I grow in high humidity and I grow in ambient. I don't get those spots, but the plants that I was getting like spots here and there, stunted growth, yellowing off leaves, those plants came to me with some coir in the mix. So I was like, do you think it's the coco coir? And I'm not saying coco coir across the board will just kill your plants. I'm not saying that. Like, I know it can be done well, but I do think it's a lot more complicated than it's marketed to be. So I was like, maybe it's the coir. Like, are all the plants that are getting spots in your collection in like some level of coconut coir in the substrate? And she's like, yeah, I guess so, because like they're next to other plants, and she's already detailed this in a video. They're next to plants touching, you know, sharing the same space where spores could technically be in the air. And the plants that aren't in coir don't have the spots. So she's running an experiment right now, and she was like, you should run an experiment too. I honestly was a little bit lazy. So my experiment is getting plants out of coir and seeing if the problems go away. And so far, yes, they are all like growing much better, growing much faster, rooting out more. The plants are now sizing up where they were like kind of stuck at a really small, like stunted size for a really long time. So that to me is proof enough that I'm just like, I'm not gonna mess with coco coir anymore. I don't think that it's the substrate for me. And I know it works really well for people, but it's just like, I don't see myself buffering coco coir. And previously I thought if I bought reptile stuff, it will be like rinsed of salt. So that's good enough, right? But then the buffering, I think really is an important step to make sure that your plants are getting the actual nutrients that you're fertilizing with and it's not all being absorbed into the coconut. Anyways, that was a really long introduction to the repot. So let's just get set up. I still don't have a table. So today we're repotting on a perlite bin. How's this angle? Not the best, not the worst. Let's do the HE red crystals first. Okay. Take this piece of tape off. That was to denote which one was mine. Okay, this one was number 4. Okay, future Alice. This is number 4 because you're gonna need to tag these when I cut it because we got 6 in total and they all look quite different. They're not like so young that you can't tell the characteristics. So I think they're a good age to be able to tell like how they're going to be different. I was kind of excited because like if we trade cuttings in the future, I'm just cutting a dead root off. We could trade cuttings in the future. Just going to clean up some of the dead tips. And like, again, I don't recommend keeping imports in water for so long. Like if it came in the way it did, and if you watch Jing's video, you'll know kind of like how they came in. They look perky. They look like this, except, I don't know, maybe like a little bit less relaxed. Like maybe the leaves were still like a little bit vertical, but they really didn't look very haggard for being shipped and cleaned and stuff. So when anthuriums come in looking like that, I will pot it straight into tray fern soil. If I have the space for humidity, I'll give them that space, but that's what I'm left with. Should I cut it? Yeah, well, I mean, okay. So if you look at this stem, it starts right here. So I got like this much stem to work with. If I cut it here-ish, I'll still have these 3 roots. I'm gonna do it. Okay, so I can see right here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but there's a little dot here that is the axillary bud. So I want to avoid that. I'll cut above it somehow, but I'm going to probably chop this leaf off in the process. And here we go. So that's the top cutting that I'm going to be rooting out. And I cut this pretty close, but that's the axillary bud that I'm left with. I know there are multiple on this. I would ideally like this one to activate, but that's my tiny little cutting. I cannot keep these in stock in my house. I'll link these in the description. These just like fly. Like I don't know how I'm always running low. I only have 3 left of this size. I have more of the bigger sizes. As usual, a bit of leca at the bottom. This will help me stretch my tree fern soil a little bit more too. Can you see? No, you can't. I can never get my angles right, but maybe we're gonna go headless. Okay, we're gonna pot up the top cutting first. I don't have like a ton of roots, so like so, right? This is a step that I always like fail to do, is like position it properly so that it looks nice in a square pot. Of course, I have forgotten to prepare my micro water. Last little bit. There we go. That one's, oh, it's so pretty and it's so dark. It's quite wobbly because of the lack of roots. I'll see if I can clear some space inside of an EXO or something to keep this in. But that is done. Okay, I'm back with my great white water. I'm just gonna water everything in this communal bin for now before I get them put in their spots. But since it's been sitting in water, I'm gonna give it a nice deep drink. Yeah, that feels pretty heavy. And I think we're gonna do this little cup for the bottom cutting. I mean, I feel like I typically do tree fern for my propagations, but you know, I think I'm just gonna put it in tree fern soil. And this one has no drainage, so the leca layer is quite important. And if for anyone who's like new to chopping anthuriums or just like doesn't really know what to expect after getting a bottom cutting like this, or like if you're buying bottom cuttings and you haven't chopped them yourself. So like the existing roots on the cutting probably are not going to be rooting out more. Typically they will be working as actual roots. They will be sustaining the plant, but you're not going to see active branching of roots from there most likely. What you will see is when the axillary bud activates and then a new plant comes out, the new plant will start to root from the stem of that new growth. And as that new plant grows, you might see like the old roots start to shed. So if you see that, it's like not necessarily a big deal. Like it's not a case of root rot. You would have to monitor the actual like new plant to see if there's like signs of stress, signs of rot, yellowing of leaves, stuff like that. So I'm gonna mark this one as HU red crystal number 4 because we have them numbered in our group chat. I cannot be bothered to get my label maker out, so we're going to just write it. HU RC number 4. And that way we can reference our mother plant photos because Jing had them numbered, and that's going to go into my prop dome. Okay, so this next one probably has more to chop off. I see more kind of limpy noodle roots. Some are broken. If I miss a root here or there, it's not a huge deal, but I think that's gonna be what I'm keeping. This one actually doesn't look, this one is borderline for me. So I might just keep it on. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it on. This one should be much easier to cut because it has like a longer stem. I'm gonna do it right here. Sorry, I didn't show you it before, but this little carrot has an axillary bud right at the top here. I'm just gonna get rid of this leaf that's yellowing. So this one is number 6. This is also for future meat, in case I make a mistake. If anyone is interested in ordering this plant, I'm sure he has more. He's been posting them more in his stories. And I feel like he didn't give us that many options. I would have probably chosen different ones that he's been posting. But in saying that, I like all of them, just in different ways. I think I wanted one with more red, but I also still really, really like this one. Of course, the dream HU red crystal is this one right here. But you know what? I could maybe make it myself one day. I am having such a hard time finding plants to like hybridize my King of Spades with, because the King of Spades is pretty well documented to be quite a poor mother plant. Like it's not very fertile, so it doesn't produce a very big yield. So if you want to use it as a mother plant, just like expect a tiny yield compared to other plants. So like you might pollinate the entire inflorescence, but you might get like less than 10 berries off of it. And it could be like quite a large inflow as well. And it just doesn't, it's just not that fertile. So if you eliminate the King of Spades as a potential mother plant, then you can only use it as pollen. So that kind of like cuts your breeding in half, kind of, in a way. And then I feel like a lot of King of Spades hybrids are very cute. So I just don't know which way I want to go. Do I want to go with something within kind of like the same species, something like a Magnificum or Crystallinum hybrid? Because that's what's speculated to be the origins of King of Spades. It has to be like a very complex mix of those two. Or do I want to go the route? Because I've seen, I think Tyler, I don't know, maybe it wasn't Tyler. Somebody else, I saw a King of Spades BVEP hybrid, and it just looks super dark. It looks like a King of Spades type, like that round kind of spidery veins, but they're really, really thin in hairline and just overall very muted and dark. And I think that looks wonderful. So I just can't decide. So I don't have a ton of time. I much prefer to use pull-in fresh. I see less, what's it called? Less failed pollinations that way. And currently, some of you might have seen when I showed you the King of Spades, it's receptive right now. So it's probably going to be producing pollen in the next week or so. Okay, so this one is also done. All potted up. Get some great white in there. I'll pot up the tiny bottom cutting. I'm also curious to see if the HU red crystal is as difficult to propagate as my King of Spades has historically been. I don't know if that's the case with most King of Spades, like other people's King of Spades that were from different seed batches. I simply don't know. I just know that if I had a bud cutting like this with my King of Spades, it will not survive. And Charmaine also had the same experience, and that's off of a different specimen. Ours are not clones of each other's. And I want to say Jing also had the same experience, and we ordered those together. So they're from the same seller at about the same time, probably just grown from different specimens within a same seed batch. Okay, so this one is HU Red Crystal number 6. What the heck? Okay, like I'm wiping it clean, and then when I place it down, I think there's static electricity because all this dust will just flies on top of it. Oh yeah, there's definitely static. Okay, let's avoid the dirt. HURC number 6. There you go. Little bit of water. Not as much as the top cuttings. Just want to dampen the substrate because I don't want it to be swampy and wet. Just by the weight of this, it's not heavy, but it's got enough weight that I know there's water in there. There's a little bit of water right now, but over the next hour or so, it's just gonna get soaked up into the substrate that hasn't gotten water contact. But I wouldn't keep these as wet as I do the other ones. Okay, next is the Amanda plant. I'm so excited to see this stem. See what the roots look like. This is in like a mossy charcoal. Yeah, mossy charcoal mix, which is not what she grows in. It's just what she ships plants in. I just freaking love her tags. She's not the only one that uses these black tags, but I really like these skinny black tags. I think I've gotten woohoo plants with these tags. I've gotten cartel plants with these tags, but they're just so sleek and they look so nice. And I really hope that this doesn't rub off. Okay, let's see how big this stem is, because if it's huge, are you kidding me? Amanda McManderson. This is the biggest stem I've... This is with her taking a cutting. Well, I don't want to cut it, do I? Because all the roots are down here. So I don't want a rootless chunk. I am not that risky with my chops. I've literally never met anybody with like kind of her level of collection that is as generous as she is. Just essentially, I'm an internet friend. Like I consider her one of my real friends, which I don't do with most people. But if you really think about it, I've never met her in person. I'm just an internet friend, and like she is so generous. And I know I'm not the only one who's been on the receiving end of her generosity. I am just shocked at how big this stem is. But like, I guess like she's also known for that. Like even with seedlings that she's grown out to like, I don't know, something like this size or a little bit smaller, she'll sell it like the whole thing. Like she doesn't take a little cutting. Well, I'm going to just cut off like a little bit of dried roots, the root tips. And then I'm going to get potted up into one of the larger pots because it's going to be outside in ambient conditions. It does feel like more humid in here than maybe like, let's say a month ago, because I just been in here for an hour or so and like already my hair has gone so limp. But the plants do dry out pretty fast because I water these plants on this shelf probably more than once a week, like maybe once every 5 days. Oh, Amanda. Well, the nice thing is I won't have to wait very long to get a cutting for Charmaine. and there's plenty of room for cuts. My friend Andrea got an Ace Carla from this shipment, and it's so freaking beautiful, and I really wanted one, but she got it. It obviously had a good stem on it, so I was like, well, maybe one day we can trade cuttings of these plants, and she said yes. So yeah, I can definitely get another chop. I just want roots coming out of here first. Before I pot that up, I'm going to sort out all the dead roots I just chopped off, because I am going to save this moss because it'll be great for moss poles for the 3 moss poles that I have in my house. I'm just going to put them in this jelly cup. I actually do have a few moss poles I need to not extend, but top up with more substrate, so this will make it really easy. My moss pole mix is basically like chopped. This is like chopped up moss, so it's not like the intact long strand sphagnum moss. She goes, I don't know how she does it, probably a little more efficient than using like a pair of scissors like I do. I'll mix more of my tree fern soil mix in there as well, because the moss is annoying to rehydrate, but it does hold the shape really well. But the tree fern soil will actually absorb the water, so that's my go-to mix. I'll just mix this with a little bit of this tree fern soil. Okay, 2 pot options. What was formed, or I guess would still be called the large square pot. Now there's a new size, and that's the extra large square pot. Because this would be like pretty boat mode. This, not so much, but it's not so much substrate that like this plant will never dry out. But in saying that, once I see like lots of like healthy roots on the side, probably will just unpot it and like get my chops in and repot it. So maybe I don't need to go so big, so I'm going to do this one. By the way, I'm super aware that the vast majority, maybe not the vast majority, but like the biggest majority of my viewers are in the States. If anyone knows like their preferred supplier of these pots, can you please maybe like just drop a comment? Because I'm aware that if where I buy it from is going to be in Canada, like people aren't going to be buying, like there's a lot of suppliers of this pot in particular. So I'd love to be able to like direct someone to a supplier that will ship these pots across the US. And bonus would be somewhere in the UK and or EU. That would be really nice if anybody could let me know. Like just a really solid place that has good prices, will ship. Okay, let's get you in there. I know the stem is pretty long, but I think I left enough room. Oh yeah, this thing is so beautiful. But I'm so mad at the stem that she left on there, because she was like, well, I mean, I cut your plant, but I just took a little cutting. Like she literally could have taken half that stem and it would still be huge. Because this is not her hybrid, so she doesn't have like a bunch of these. This is just the one of one in her collection. But what a great hybrid, like Ace of Spades and BVEP. I really want her to make like the Amanda version. She said this, like this is an idea that she had. She wants to make like her version of something that looks like the red vein dark phoenix, and I would love to see that. I would love to do it too, but my dark phoenix, I just don't know what to match it up with just to get a red sinus or like red veins. But dark phoenix can have red veins in the babies because some cells do, but the red doesn't stick around. I just don't know, something very with muted veins that has the tendency to do red. Who knows? Carla dark phoenix. Carla dark phoenix. Well, there's some food for thought. But yeah, the red vein dark phoenix is a variegated pap hybrid with like yellow variegation and Ace of Spades. From the photo, it's hard to tell if it's a true Ace of Spades, whether it's like the NSE green form or if it's the dark form. It doesn't really look like the dark form to me. But anyway, since my Ace of Spades is not flowering, I can't do like my dupe of that, so I'll have to be creative, I think. All right, this is pretty buried now. I also sometimes get questions of like how much of the stem I bury. I basically bury all of the stem. So there's the caterpillar poking out right here. Maybe I went a little deep. Yeah, I went a little deep. Pull a bit out. It was just like a little wobbly, so I wanted to stabilize it. Okay, that's better. So like that. That's what I got it buried up to. My tag in and give it a nice good drink. Yeah, she's watered deeply. This is very heavy now. Oh, I feel better now. I've been waiting to do those repots for so long. Well, it felt like an eternity. There's so many times where I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. Okay, next up, Fort Sherman Ralph Lynam. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to show you while I'm cutting, but I'll see if I can show you what I see. So remember, these two leaves are the offset. No, these two leaves are the offset. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see from that angle, but there's the stem right here. And from that stem, there's like a little root about that thick extending into the substrate. So I'm just going to like get because my shears are pretty pointy. I'm going to just try to just shove it in there and make my cut. Sometimes it's easier to have it out of the substrate and then just like break it. But at the very, oh, you know what? I can kind of see. No, I can see it from here. You can't see it. There's no way I'm going to be able to show you, but I made my cut. Okay. Pretty good root attached to that. It's somehow already in caterpillar. It's so young. Okay, first, before we put this plant away, I'm gonna just top it up with more substrate. It feels kind of wobbly now with that offset gone. Just try to stabilize you a little bit more. I think this plant probably has like another, I don't know, month and a half at least before it needs a repot. It went from pond to tree fern soil. It does like the substrate, but it's not like massively getting root bound. But I'm trying not to touch it because I know this plant was flowering pretty consistently before coming to me. Before it lost a lot of its roots. So I'm gonna just wait to see if this leaf starts to flower. Prior to this, it was every leaf was flowering. So we'll see if it starts to resume that. What's left of my great white, I'm gonna just pop that in there, even though there's great white in the substrate. Okay, we're gonna just use the small size. That's a small size. Because it's not going to be living in here for a really, really long time. Like, this is not a personal plant. This will be sold. I'm going to pop the roots right at the front there so I can see how they're doing. I might just dust a little bit of great white in here. Just directly on the roots. I don't tend to do this, but that was a lot actually. Oops. I don't tend to do this, but when the stakes are a little bit higher, I think that's ideal. This is not like a high risk repot or anything, but this plant is co-owned with Charmaine, so I just don't want to leave anything up to chance. And it's super wobbly because there's only that one-ish root. So hopefully it will stabilize. No, it wants to lean forward. I want it to be like this. Maybe I have, oh yeah, I do. I have this like steak that I cut up into short pieces. I'm gonna just do something like that. Just gonna Velcro that to the stake until it starts to root out more. Give it a little bit of stability. Oh, it's so pretty. Gonna be a very, very cute one. I'm very excited for whoever gets to own that. I also have the perfect saucer for these. Look at how perfect. Funny, not really funny, not even very entertaining story, but Charmaine has been using these as little saucers. Like, I've gotten a couple plants from her that was using this as a saucer. And I was like, it's so great. I'm gonna be like, I was just started collecting these saucers from her so I could use it as a little saucer for, it's a condiment container, right? So I've been just like hoarding them from her. And then I was cleaning out my garage and I saw like 3 sleeves of these, and I realized that she got these from me in the first place. But I totally forgot about them. They've just been sitting in my garage. I didn't even remember that I had them. But these are so perfect for the small square pots. So that one's gonna live in my tent for sure. All right, the Queen of Hearts. I was like trying to figure out how I'm gonna like save this soil because it has the coir in there. I know, well, I don't know. I suspect that it wouldn't be good to reuse it on my anthuriums particularly. So I figured I'm just gonna save it. I don't think I'm gonna need to sanitize it unless there's like a lot of root rot in here. I kind of decided I'm going to save this and just use it to top dress other plants that I don't think are gonna get badly affected by the coir, if the coir is actually going to be bad. So like I have like a big tree like pots of plants in my living room. I think I'm gonna just use it for that. Also, this plant nonstop flowers, but it never goes to pollen. It actually stays receptive for quite a long time, but this inflow is kind of dying. As you can see, it's turning yellow. It's kind of shriveling a little bit, and no pollen. And I think I've gone through like 4 or 5 flowers on this plant without getting any pollen. But I also hear that this one is notoriously hard to breed with. I have a feeling it's going to have a root system that's really tangled. Okay, so all around here, I'm pretty sure is my tree fern soil. And I think all of this here in this ball that kind of stayed intact in this like square shape, because it used to be in a square pot, I think that's the coir. I mean, I feel like it's all kind of mixed, so I'm just gonna get it all loosened up. And actually it's coming off pretty easy. The roots must not be very good. Nope, this is dead. Okay, well maybe that's the reason why this leaf is starting to yellow. But I do know that when I first potted it up, like the roots were really healthy, but it had that really crazy crisp. Yeah, this big root here is hollow. But I'm actually pleasantly surprised at how easily that substrate came off. This big root up here is also super dead. How is the stem situation? It's gonna be really hard to show you because it's like so covered in soil, but it also looks like it's never been cut. It comes down to like a tapered point. All right, well, let's get chopping then. Okay, first I'm gonna get rid of all the root rot. So this thing, toast, dunzos. This thing, dunzos. Sorry if you can hear my phone vibrating. I do need to keep it on because I'm coordinating, like finishing filming, getting ready, like we're going out for dinner. It is actually quite nice to have friends visit, provided you can take some time off, because it just feels like, I don't know, I just haven't been exploring my city at all. So it's kind of nice to see your home as like in a new light. Okay, so these roots are covered in coir and I'm wondering, I probably should wash them. But actually I chopped off this. There's still quite a lot of healthy roots on here, so I'm still suspecting coir for the continued damage. I know it doesn't look that bad right now, but the one that was really crispy before, it was like burnt to a crisp. And I don't think that this is known to be a very difficult plant. I quite like mine a lot. It's definitely not a queen of hearts. It's like very triangular, but I think that's quite cute. Like the new leaves have a pretty flat sinus, and as it expands it starts to go a little bit more vertical. But I quite like mine. When I first got it, the older leaves were more heart-shaped, like this. Okay, I'm gonna just quickly rinse off these roots before we give it a little choppy chop. Okay, I probably could have rinsed it more, but that's fine. Well, that's a pretty good root system in my opinion. Yeah, there's so much stem on here. I'd probably get at least 2 cuttings, I think. I'm gonna try to do more stem on the bottom. So that's the bottom cutting. There's like probably 4 or 5 nodes on there. I'm not worried about stunting the growth on this one, just because it's not a plant that I could really breed with. It's out in ambient, but if it gets too big, it's gonna be really stressful. So this one, there's gotta be something. There's a few nodes on here. And then I'm leaving myself like a decent root system. So this one, I was originally gonna put it back into that one, but maybe this is slightly smaller, the extra large square pot. Maybe this one? Or should I go back in? Maybe I'll put it back in actually. Should I give it? No, okay, so I did bring a fresh pot. Let's put it in a fresh pot and I'll just have to clean the leca in the pot. I've never propped, I mean, clearly you can see this plant's never been cut before. So I really don't know how it does with being cut. Like, is it going to take a really long time? I don't know if it has a poor propagation cutting success rate or not. Like, I would think that it's not going to be a big, like, pain in the ass to get cuttings from. Just because, like, this plant is pretty easygoing, I would say. And maybe I'm just only thinking about humidity in that regard. Because when I first got it, it was living in my tent for a few months and it got a little too big, so I moved it out and just it grew a leaf right after, and the leaf didn't get any tears, it didn't crisp. So I chopped it up to be like a pretty good ambient grower, but maybe that has nothing to do with how well it propagates. I mean, it wouldn't, right? Because like King of Spades is also really a good, nice ambient grower for anthuriums, but mine does not like to be cut. But I'm also seeing, like, right now, we're in, I feel like it feels like spring here in Vancouver. It definitely does not feel like summer yet. It's been raining a lot. The temperatures aren't super high. I think it's starting to warm up in the next little while, but right now, with the temperatures being like a few degrees higher than it has been in the winter, it my propagations are going a lot faster. So for sure the growth rate has sped up. Hopefully that means good things for these cuttings. I mean, if I take like a cutting in the summertime when it's quite warm and I dome it, I will see things popping within like a week. And then in some instances, I would see a new leaf within 2 weeks. But over winter, it would take like over a month, maybe up to 2 months to see a new leaf. I don't know why everything seems so wobbly today. I'm leaving it kind of low in the pot, so I'm leaving a bit of a gap just so like when, I don't know, maybe because like this is a kind of the biggest clear pot I have, so I can't really upsize it. So I want to grow it in here longer rather than like keep upsizing the pot. So as it grows taller and it gets more stem above the substrate, I still have room to top it up with more soil. There are definitely options bigger than this, but they're not clear. I really wish that somebody will just make like a 10-inch clear pot, a 12-inch clear pot. There has to be a lot of requests for extra large 10 to 12-inch clear pots from the Chinese manufacturers. But I feel like they're all like, no, you do it. No, you do it. No, you do it. Nobody wants to just get the mold made. I know that like to get, I don't know that. I have heard that to get a mold made, like, cause like this is not the same mold as this. So when you're gonna introduce a new SKU like that, it's like $10,000 to get that kind of the setup costs. I don't know how up to date that is in terms of pricing. It maybe is more now, but this is what I was told. Okay, so that's potted up now. We'll see. We'll see if I mean, I don't think this leaf can be saved, but we'll see if it starts happening to this leaf later as it pushes out a new one. This one literally just hardened off, so it might be a little while before we see a new leaf, but fingers crossed. Okay, so this cutting, this was, the auxiliary bud was covered in soil, but now that it's clean, I can see that there's like, it's good. That's going to be where it's going to grow out of. But there's quite a lot of roots. It's not going to fit into my little cup. Do I have to use my last pot for it? Does anyone else get nervous when you use the last of anything? I also cannot stand the feeling of losing an object, like misplacing it, can't find it. It stresses me out. I feel like more than the average person. Like it will ruin my day and I won't be able to, like, I can barely breathe knowing that I lost something. Maybe I don't need it to be that big. Maybe I'll put the smaller pot. Hopefully you'll be able to fit in there. Yeah, I think I can get it to fit. Anyways, does anybody else have that same feeling of just like doom and dread if you misplace or lose something? I think I've had that. It was ingrained in me from a child. I don't think anything in particular happened to make, like, I don't know if it was a learned thing or it's just something I was born with. But I call them my godparents, but I don't think they were officially my godparents. But both of my parents worked when we were kids, so we had this couple that would like watch us, and they're like family to us. And the person, I'll call her my godmother, but she's not like officially my godmother. She said that like if anyone gave me something to hold, like if she gives me like a lollipop or a flower or something, I will hold on to that thing so tight. Like that thing is not coming out of my hand. Even if I fall asleep, my fist is just like this, holding on to that thing. She was like, anything that needed to be held tight, like Alice was not losing that thing. I don't know if any of you watched that vlog. I can't remember if it was on, no, it was on Charmaine's channel. We were filming in the car. We were going to Vandula for the Equigenera pop-up like a few weeks ago. I misplaced my, there's like a little dongle that attaches the microphone that I'm filming on right now. Attaches that, it connects it to the lightning cable that connects to your phone. When I got, like, it was a little bit of a rush. I got into her car and then I had it attached to my phone. And then she was like, oh, I want to film first. So I unplugged it from my phone to hand the microphone to her. But in pulling it out, I didn't realize that that dongle also flew off. So it was somewhere in her car. And I don't know if you guys could tell, I was stressing. I feel like it was an inappropriate level of stress. Maybe it didn't come off on camera, but I was like so upset for losing. And it was in the car. I knew it was safe somewhere in the car, but I can't handle losing objects like that. Luckily, I've never lost anything like really, really, really important. Like, I don't know, my passport while I'm traveling or my phone, but like I can imagine the breakdown I would have if that happened. Okay. That one's done. This one, oh, I need to clean up more roots on here. If you're ever like potting up like a butt cutting like this and it has a lot of roots, like way more roots than you think is appropriate for the amount of stems on the plant, and the plant being so small. Like imagine if this root system was like 4 times bigger and it's like way too big. You don't want like a big gallon pot for like a tiny little plant. Feel free to chop some off. I mean, with live plants, I cannot guarantee you that nothing bad will happen, but like I said, it's not going to be rooting out more from that original root system, but it does have the capability of sustaining the plant. But something like this microscopic does not need a big root system, because this will fit in the pot, so I'm not gonna like trim it any further. But if the root system was massive, like I've done it in the past, just like chop what will fit in, like, because you need to fit it into your space, right? Let's twirl you in. I think you'll fit. It's a little snug, but you'll fit. Okay, these two are now done. I've buried it enough, but I can still see the axillary bud above the substrate, so there's a little bit of stem and the tops of some roots exposed. This one is kind of like slightly above the substrate as well, but they're going into my humidity dome. And for some reason, I feel like these should get a printed label. Queen of Hearts. Print. Oh man. Oh well. I got a little bit of dirt underneath it. Dang it. Queen of Hearts. Just gonna give these chunks a little bit of myco water. It's honestly not as much, well, you can't see, not as much root loss as I expected. When that root system came out, I was like, ooh, like the majority of it's dead, but it actually wasn't that bad. Okay, so I have to stop repotting now because I got the text that I need to start making my way to dinner. But I just want to show you other plants that I'm going to end up having to repot off camera. But my luxurians needs, I think I want to transition it to tree fern soil. It's been growing in pond for a couple of years now, and for how long I've had this plant, it should be way bigger than it actually is. And it's not that like I want it to be massive, but I just think that this plant is struggling a little bit. It got moved out of my tent, honestly, not that long ago, within the last year. And it's been okay, but very underwhelming growth, and it should be way bigger. I just realized that it's growing its first flower, but honestly, I've had this since before Tropicals and Ecuagenera started to stock these. It's been a really long time, and it should be much bigger than this. So I want to get this moved into tree fern soil. For me, pond transition to tree fern soil is just like nothing. It's just seamless for anthuriums specifically. I don't know if it's because like there's some overlapping components, because I do use orchiata in my pond. I mean, I do have friends who grow their luxurians in pond and they do it way better than this, but this is obviously not working for this plant in particular. Another pond transition to tree fern soil I want to do is this crystallinum luxurians hybrid. This came from Amanda. It was pretty, I mean, it's been sizing up definitely better than luxurians. This has kind of filled out the pot. I mean, I can see the roots better than I could the Lux. The Lux had a lot more algae. I have a feeling it'll do better in soil. And the reason I say that is because, like, for me, I have more issues, just ripping off some sheets. I have more issues with Lux hybrids and edema causing damage to the leaves. I have that issue with luxurians and Lux hybrids. And I just think that with soil, I'm going to be able to keep the moisture content in the substrate like more consistent, more even, less like dry, wet cycles. My pond definitely dries out much faster and more drastically than my soil. So this one would go into like that massive pot, this size pot, and in tree fern soil. The exciting thing is that it started to flower. This leaf attempted to flower. It didn't quite make it, but it's starting to flower, and I do want to hybridize this back with my crystallinum black. So I've seen a couple of pictures of like luxurians hybrids crossed back to something velvety, and it's so pretty. It's like a much velvetier version of the Lux hybrid, or conversely, you can kind of think about it as like a more bullite version of a regular crystallinum. That's my hope, because I want to do it with my crystal black, which is quite dark. Crossed with this, I'm hoping for very bumpy but very velvety sparkling veins, because you can see like with a lot of Lux hybrids, even if it's hybridized with something really silvery, bright, bold veins, the veins really get like erased. So my hope is to get something with silvery veins. But also, like, luxurians has a really, really long gestation period. What I've heard with people who use luxurians hybrids, so like let's say this Crystal Lux, if a luxurians has a gestation period of about a year, Crystal Lux would be somewhere in between what a crystal and a Lux would be. So if a crystal is like 4 months and a Lux is a year, it's going to be somewhere around like 8-9 months. So the idea would be to use the Pullman from this on the crystallinum, so to have the gestation period of a crystallinum, which is much shorter than a Lux hybrid or luxurians. That's my plan. So I'm patiently waiting for another inflow to pop out of the next leaf. It's slowly working on one, but I will be repotting the 2 of these off camera. But yeah, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys got some repotting done, or whatever. If you didn't, perfect. Like, if you were resting, good for you. But in any case, I hope you guys have been having an awesome weekend. I hope it's been restful and peaceful. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.